Every year, hundreds of foreigners are forced to leave the Philippines. Let's take a look and see how you can avoid getting into trouble while you're in the Philippines. Let's take a look. When traveling to a foreign country, it's important to know that the rules, regulations, traditions that you may have had in your home country will be much different. And it's very important for you as a traveler to know the difference. Because failure to be aware of these laws or traditions could very well make you end up in a bad situation or even removed from the country. And the last thing you want to do is end up in trouble or end up here when you're in a foreign country. Because as a foreigner, you will not have the same rights that you have in your country, but also will not have those rights here that locals may have. It's a different set of rules. So again, very important that you're aware of this, aware of the rules, regulations, laws, and customs. So many come here thinking because it is a third world country that they will get away with much more. But those that come here thinking that are always the ones that end up like this, in shock that they've gotten caught doing something wrong or bad, or sometimes just something they just weren't aware of. A good example is having relations with a married woman. And those one phone calls that you get when you're arrested in the States, forget that. That's not applicable here. It may be a shocker to realize that you're put into the cage and you're probably going to sit there until they are ready to move you. And the balance that we're supposed to have in America definitely is not going to happen here. Sometimes, some places in the Philippines, money will make a difference for you, but most cases not, unless it's an awful lot of money. So many times, particularly nowadays, because of the corruption laws here in the Philippines, they're not going to allow for you to buy your way out of a problem here. So the best solution or the best prevention would be to make sure you're aware, fully aware. The American consulate here is pretty much worthless. You can't get anything. The only thing they're doing is pushing paper. They're not going to be coming to the jail to rescue you. They could care less. They're there for a paycheck. That's about it. And if you've ever been there and you see the long lines, nothing's going to happen in a hurry. But as I mentioned, if you're, you have to be very careful of what you're doing here. If you're going with someone and she tells you that she's single, you need to check it out. Because if she's a married woman, her husband could bring charges against you and get you put in jail as well as removed from the country. And it goes the other way around too. If if you're having a relationship with a man and he's married, the same thing can occur. And it recently happened to occur. It has occurred recently, and the concubine and the man were both imprisoned by the wife, and he is now being deported. But also, make sure that you're checking your ages on your girls. Girls will lie, and make sure you check an ID. Take a picture of it, and make sure that you cover your butt and make sure she's of age before you do anything. But one of the things we wanted to talk about mainly in this video is about the immigration situation. Obviously, every country has its immigration rules and regulations, and you need to follow those. I do have 3 links towards the end of the video that I'm going to share with you. I would strongly advise you to keep those links someplace, and you can reference them periodically to keep up to speed on what's going on with the immigration rules and regulations here in the Philippines, because I can tell you they change almost daily. They've been like that ever since COVID. But you'll find here that if you've been here for a couple of years, you do need to exit the country and get it's basically a border run like any other country you've been in. You have to periodically leave the country, get a stamp on your passport, and come back. We're no different. The only difference is you're not going to do an over-the-land border run because you're on an island. So you have to jump on a plane and go somewhere. The closest country is really Vietnam. And to me, Vietnam is perfect. I love the country, been there, done that, and find it to be incredible. And most affordable, cheaper than any other countries you can fly to. I've did it and gone to Vietnam. I had a great time. I'll cover that in a little bit detail with you now. I opted not to fly into Saigon only because Saigon is no different than, Bangkok or Manila. It's a madhouse. And I love Vietnam. When I was in America, I did have a Vietnamese girlfriend. She was a great gal, but too much Americanized. And for me, it was, I would rather have the more traditional than the Americanized version. But in any event, good gal nevertheless. And so, I got over to Vietnam and just found them to be a great people. The people on the street were great. They would actually go up to me and touch my arm. There obviously is a language barrier, but it didn't seem to be a problem. They're very helpful. I just was so surprised. I'm not sure if it would be the same thing in Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon, but I'm in Hanoi, and they're very, very, very nice. And I found everything to be very easy. And actually, the hotel I stayed at, everything was within walking distance, literally. Traffic was a little bit challenging. I don't think I would drive in Vietnam. As you can see, I don't know what the rules are. I don't think there are any rules other than just dodge each other. It was amazing. I could stand on the corner and just watch the vehicles and the people walking and wondering how the heck they do it. I mean, how they're not killed. I don't know what the rate of death is there, but it's simply amazing. I thought it was bad in Houston, Texas, but my gosh, over there, beyond amazing. And excuse my finger in the camera there. I have a tendency to do that quite often. And just like here in the Philippines, it's always amazing to me the amount of stuff people can get on their motos and drive around. In the United States, we can't even ride a moto, number one, but carry the loads that they do in these countries is amazing to me. Saw one guy with a casket on the back going down the road. I was hoping it was empty. You never know. For me in Hanoi, I could just go out and stand on a corner and watch. I was just totally amazed, and people were amazed with me as well. There were a few foreigners I saw, but not too many up in Hanoi. I did go up. I always wanted to go up to the border with China up in the mountains. I ended up doing that after I left Hanoi, which I can do in a different video. But there's so many things to see in Hanoi. The week I was there, I still really didn't get to see everything I wanted to see. But I did knock out quite a few on my bucket list. And of course, I had my fill of authentic banh mi, which in Houston we go to the one banh mi shop across the street from where my office was, and it was incredible. But the banh mi in Vietnam was off the charts good. Look at that. She looked like she was being shy. Didn't want her mom to see what she was doing. For me, it was really just about, in Hanoi, I was just in awe, kind of taking everything in. One of the bad things I didn't like about Hanoi is they park all of their motors up on the sidewalk, so you end up walking in the street as opposed to parking in the street and letting people walk on the sidewalk. It's kind of backwards and something they probably should address at some point. But yeah, I always felt a little bit nervous walking on the street. And I say that only because, not because of any kind of violence, just because, if you're getting hit by someone. While I was in Vietnam, I was always, felt a little bit of shame. I don't know how that the Americans can wage a war on such a nice people. It was just amazing to me. Very open, very friendly. Just amazing. I couldn't imagine having a plane fly over and dropping bombs on a place or a people like this. Truly a crime. And we certainly haven't learned anything from our past, that's for sure. This is kind of just, a little ride around on the streets of Hanoi I wanted to share with folks. So I kind of kept the camera, so to speak, going and just cruising around the streets. I did found a few of the locations that I went to that were like tourist destinations, pretty well packed. The Vietnamese are definitely getting around. They're not the old days, just not traveling. They are traveling quite a bit. No matter where I went, there was a lot of Vietnamese traveling, taking advantage of, a better income or a better economy. And the area of Hanoi that I stayed is called the Old Town. And I guess it's the older part of town, and from there it's kind of developed outwards. I know on the north side it's very developed, very trendy, very westernized, modern buildings, all the best internet, all that fun stuff that we enjoy back in the West. And there are quite a few, from what I heard anyway, there are quite a few foreigners living in the north side of Hanoi. And for me, to be honest, Hanoi beats Thailand 110%. I didn't really like Thailand too much, but Hanoi, I could definitely live there. These gals were fun. They were surprised to see me. And if you would, do the thing. You know what to do. I appreciate it. And this is actually the hotel that I stayed in there. Nice place. It was only $20 a night. I couldn't believe it. And this is just a partial buffet. She was still setting everything up there. Met a nice lady there. Spent quite a bit of time. Turned out to be a really good friend of mine. But the buffet was amazing. it's a free buffet. $20 a night for the room, and then you got a free breakfast buffet. And that's only a small fraction of the buffet that actually was there. And that's the gal that I met. She turned out to be a really good friend. This is the hotel, so if you get a chance, give them a holler. If you are over there, give them a holler. I do know the rates change depending upon the season, tourist season. But this is one of the banh mi's that I picked up. I'm a banh mi addict. I love them. It's a meat and vegetable sandwich. And this is where I was picking them up there. Outside, I met this guy. I call him Uncle Ho because to me, he reminded me of Ho Chi Minh. But again, he didn't speak English. I didn't speak Vietnamese, and we communicated very well. We had a little blast while sitting there. Then around the corner, around the block, I should say, the next day I went down to this banh mi factory. And I say banh mi factory only because look at these gals churning out this banh mi. They've got quite a system going. And actually, across the street, They've got a big area where they have, I guess, a dining room, but it's just packed full with people. So they're doing quite a good business there. They got a good product. And this place here I found interesting too. I had a blast here with this guy. I ate here several times, eating some pho, some soup. This guy was funny as heck, and I enjoyed his company as well. And they had some really affordable quality soup as well. And he was a great guy. I loved him. It's one of those things where you don't need to communicate verbally, but we were having a lot of fun.
And this one, though, we're going to take a little bit of a turn and a surprise for me, and we'll be going under the Citadel. And the reason being, under the Citadel, Ho Chi Minh and the Vietnamese government had their own underground bunker below the Citadel. And we'll take a walk down there and take a look at it. It was nice. I met a nice couple, or actually family I should say, Vietnamese family that were up touring the area as well. And right now we're walking down under the bunker. I would say it's probably a couple stories below the Citadel. And you'll see this big steel door. Now obviously a bunker like this probably wouldn't work well in these days because they have bunker buster bombs. But back in the day it probably would have worked fine during the Vietnam War. But this is where Ho Chi Minh and his top brass would go and make plans for the war. This is a pretty nice little complex right here. Heck, I wouldn't mind it for my own little apartment. But walking around here was pretty interesting. They had some artifacts from back in the day. I wish they would have had more. But they had some very interesting ones that I did recognize. Having been, in a certain industry related to military as well as electronics. But they had some artifacts around there. What I found most impressive was this particular room here because of the mapping they had on the walls, which we'll see in a moment. But, back when I was a child growing up, actually I graduated in 1976, so I was just after the Vietnam War. But I saw it on the news every day. I heard the propaganda on the news every day. And it was amazing to me when I looked at these maps. These people, the Vietnamese, they knew everything that we were doing before we did it. They knew the routes. They knew everything. And we were there just like so many countries today, and we think we know everything. And as we know, our intelligence is often flawed. But if you take a look at these maps, you'll see the routes they were taking from Guam, and I guess basically back then they took the same routes all the time, didn't vary too much. I guess they figured the Vietnamese didn't have the technology to tamper with them offshore. But again, I was taken back by these. I mean, who would have thought that they knew so much? Look at that. We flew in the same circles all the time from Guam. And from Thailand as well. Ho Chi Minh, by the way, if you've never done a history on him, look at his history. He's an incredible guy. I should do a video just on him, but he has all my respect. And he's a former U.S. ally, like always. All right, folks.
And what trip to Hanoi would be complete without a visit to the Hanoi Hilton, where John McCain, the infamous John McCain, was held prisoner during the Vietnam-American War. And of course, the Vietnamese population themselves were terrorized and imprisoned. Well, the French were there before the Americans, and thousands have died in this prison and were executed and beat and tortured in this prison, not only Americans. So it wasn't isolated. A lot of people think it was a prison just for Americans. Not true at all. Matter of fact, for decades it was used as a house of horror, and it really was. So sad. Glad to get out of there. And to be honest, that place was packed with people, Vietnamese tourists.
My continuing effort to knock out my bucket list, I'm still in Hanoi, Vietnam, getting ready to head down to the train tracks today, one of the big tourist destinations here. But in the meantime, walking down the street, taking some pictures of some architectural interest of mine. Also noticing that, some of the bikes here, how much weight they put on them and transport their goods here. They don't need big pickup trucks like we do in the States. This gentleman here has a little shop. He's refurbishing fans, blenders, even irons. Nothing's thrown away here like it is in the States. They recycle it, repurpose it. Got to respect that. But anyway, here's the tracks that everybody is so famously wanting to get to. And I went down there that day and took a walk up and down. It was interesting. Amazing how you can take a train tracks and turn it into a major tourist destination, but they've done it well with the cafes and restaurants along the way. Ran into a nice couple down there. The young man, he wanted to try the tobacco. Everybody in Vietnam smokes these big bong things with tobacco, I guess, in it. He wanted to try it, and he did. And I can tell you, within a few seconds, his eyes turned incredibly red. He got a very serious look on his face. His girlfriend was laughing. A lady from across the tracks ran over with a glass of water for him. He sat down and vowed never to take that tobacco again. So I don't know what it is or how it works, but it definitely got the best of him. But I spent a little bit of time at the tracks, walking up and down it, checking out some of the restaurants and cafes. And then I decided to make my way back to my hotel, which, by the way, if you haven't seen my previous video about the hotel, check it out. It's a great hotel, great buffet, great staff, and it is in a central location of Hanoi, right in the middle of about 5 or 6 of the major tourist destinations, all walkable. I walked to all of them. Matter of fact, I knocked out a couple of them in one day just walking. But yeah, check it out. And but anyway, after walking back, I was a little bit tired, so I went up and took a nap. And about midnight, I wanted to see what it was like out in the street, so I walked back down, stepped out on the street, and it was the most peaceful, quiet street you'd ever want to find. So I enjoyed it, enjoyed my day, enjoyed my evening. You get a chance, go check it out. I'm sure you'll be as pleased as I was. And this is my friend I met at my hotel. I gotta tell you, you want to talk about a real class act. Intelligent, beautiful, knowledgeable, real pleasure. I really felt blessed to have met this person and to be able to spend time with her while I was there. Maybe in a different time, a different space, things would have been different for us, but I wasn't staying there forever. And she had a couple of kids also, which is a pretty heavy load for me, not really something I want to get into. But I mean, as far as personality goes, it doesn't really get better than this one here. So God bless you wherever you're at. What a real blessing. Hey, listen, also, I promised at the beginning of the video that I'd be leaving you with some information. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the comments below. 3 links. All 3 are very valuable, ones that I would keep on hand. Particularly the one with the gal, her name is Jennifer. She really stays up to speed on the latest information in regard to visas and things of that nature. So definitely use her as a resource, as well as the U.S. The U.S. State Department, as well as the Philippine State Department links that I'm going to leave for you. And here's a cheer to you with my morning coffee from up in Sapa, Vietnam, up on the Chinese border. And I'll cover that in a video later. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. And just remember, a rolling stone gathers no moss. Happy trails.